Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and today we are going to talk about bleed-proof white.
Ah,
We have Michael here working the cameras.
again.
Michael!
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so one of my favorite tools to use when I paint with watercolor is bleed-proof white. My favorite brand of bleed-proof white is Dr. P.H. Martin's. It comes in a glass tub just like this. This is like essentially the only way that you can get it. And what bleed-proof white is essentially opaque watercolor, which is gouache. That's
Okay.
what gouache is opaque watercolor. It's not designed to be mixed with colors. That's what it says on the website description. I do it anyway. If you painted with me in the Monet course, I do it anyway.
We're deep into a lawsuit with PH Martin. They're like, don't mix it anymore.
No. They really like us, so I don't think they'll sue us.
Don't sue us, please.
Please don't sue us. No, but anyways, and the reason why I go back to this brand over and over again is because of how opaque it is. I have used other brands' white gouache before, but I've never met a white gouache that can be as opaque as bleed-proof white, which is why I prefer to use it. Now, some people get frustrated with it because it comes in this like glass little tub and it can dry out. Now, for me, I have found ways that I can bring it back a little bit, even if it gets really crusty and dried out. And so I just wanted to share with you how you can save your bleed-proof white if it does get a little bit crusty.
If
Okay?
and when. If and
If
when.
and when. Now, usually, I mean, obviously this one has been used and you might be like, how is this so clean, Sarah? Well, this was the one I cleaned yesterday in preparation for this video because usually my bleed-proof white, this is a random one I'm grabbing. Let's see what this one looks like. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yuck,
Okay.
Yuck.
So usually it's filled to the top and the texture is more like a paste, which is kind of confusing to some people at first because they're used to, a liquid watercolor or the tube watercolor, but it really comes like thick like this, okay? And what happens and how it can dry out, for example, is you leave the lid off for too long or something like that. The other problem that I encounter, and this is a personal problem because you might not be a psycho like I am, but I will dip my paintbrushes directly into this. And so I get lots of like colors, okay?
You can see the history of what Sarah's painted.
Here are all of my bleed-proof whites.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know you had all that.
And basically when I'm painting, I just randomly pick one that is the least offensive or that goes with my
Oh no.
color palette.
Oh no. I'm learning things
Ooh.
about you.
Look at this one.
Oh, it's pristine.
You are going back in. Okay. Oh, this is another clean one. So basically, I have a mix here, and I just want to show you what I do to try and save it. If it gets crystallized like this, if it gets dirty like this, I'm going to show you what I do. Okay?
Okay.
I just throw it in the trash. No, I'm just kidding. Just
You
buy a new one.
You open your laptop and just like buy one more.
Yeah.
And done.
And you might be like, why do you have so many bleed-proof whites? It's because when we did our watercolor weekend workshop, I bought a bunch of bleed-proof whites for people to use. And so when they left, they didn't take it on their palette, obviously. So I had a bunch from there.
Sure, Sarah.
Okay, so the supplies that you're gonna need to try and like resuscitate your bleed-proof white is you want to have like some sort of tool that you can use to scrape and you can use to mix. It obviously is going to get bleed-proof white all over it, so please don't use your very expensive brushes or like your grandmother's antique family heirloom teaspoon or something like that, okay? Use plastic material. Okay, so if it gets crusty and dry like this, what I do is I take a palette knife or a plastic knife or a butter knife or really anything. And I have a trash can here, okay? And I'm just going to scrape.
That one's very dry.
This one is really, really dry, which is great because then I can show you what I do to bring it back. So I'm just going through and I'm just scraping off. I usually do this over a trash can, but I'm just scraping off the little dry flecks, okay? The other thing that I'll scrape off is like the colors that get dipped in there when I dip my fresh paintbrush in there.
We're learning lots of things about you today, Sarah Cray.
Yes. You're seeing you're seeing the dark side of Sarah Cray.
It's called How the Sausage is Made. We're seeing how the sausage is made.
Okay. So once I get off all the crusties. Like this is still dry, but it's not like crusty dry. Do you see what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
It's more like a clay dry as opposed to like crinkly dry. Okay. Then what I do is I then take, well, let me get these crusties off. Now you can spray water in there. Like, let's just say your bleed proof white is clean and it just is like dry crusties. You don't have to scrape it off if you don't want. You can try and, what's the word when you bring it back with water?
Resuscitate.
No, there's actually
Reconstitute.
Reconstitute.
Yes.
Good job.
Thank you.
You can just try and reconstitute those, but what I have found is that if I don't scrape off the dry crusties, they kind of just turn into lumps. They don't fully mix back in. So that's why it's easier for me just to scrape them off, because then I know that I'll get a smoother bleed proof white. But if you have the patience, you might be able to like mix that all up together. Okay, after I scrape off all the dry crusties, I'm then gonna take a water bottle or just water, and I'm just gonna do a couple squirts. Now, I'm telling you that you need to go slowly while adding this water, because if you add too much water, that's gonna affect how opaque your bleed proof white is. If you add so much water that it's now like a liquid watercolor in there, it's gonna be white, but it's just not gonna be opaque, and that's the whole reason why we love this bleed proof white, right? So you're just gonna add a little bit of moisture at a time. After you add the moisture.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So once you reconstitute this and you like get it back, is it ever as good as the original? Or like, is the original one always better?
I mean, like, there's nothing like a brand new tub.
Like, does it dry out quicker once you reconstitute it? Do you know what I'm saying?
It depends on how much water you add to it.
Okay.
If you add the correct consistency of water, like not too much water, then it works fine just the same. In my experience, it's not a lesser experience. Okay. But I have added too much water before, and then it is a lesser experience. Okay?
Sorry for the interruption.
That's all right. Okay, so I'm going to do another squirt or two of water. And then you're going to start trying to mix this all together. Wouldn't it be so funny if the people who make bleed proof white are like watching this video and they're just horrified?
They probably are.
They probably are. Listen, Aaron, who's actually a very nice guy. I'm sorry if you don't like what I'm doing to your product, but this is how I get it to last.
Sarah, were you paying attention when we redid our bathroom and they were doing the shower and they had a big tool on their drill to mix all the mortar?
No.
It looks like a big, kind of like a fork that goes onto a drill. We should make a teeny, teeny, tiny one.
Yes, we should.
For remixing up your bleed proof white.
So basically, I'm just like reconstituting all of this dried out bleed proof white. So I'm mixing it. And again, the reason why you want to mix it is you want to get like those areas that got really like clay dried out texture. You want to, what's that word again, honey?
Reconstitute.
Reconstitute, thank you. We're reconstituting. And it's going to, so if you can evenly mix your bleed proof white back in with the moisture, then you're going to also have like an even texture. If you don't mix it back in, then you're going to have some parts that are just watery and some parts that are still thick.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have to like put a little caveat here that so much of what I'm doing, so much of my life really is not based on research besides my own experiences. So like if you have your own experiences where you're just like, actually, I've tried this with bleed proof white and it works fantastic and all of that, that's great. If you have found a white that you love better than bleed proof white, that's also great. So I just want to say, like, I am not the
authority
fully. I'm just showing you what I do, which is make a mess.
And if you have a better way, let us know.
Yeah. Okay. So now you can see that we're back to that kind of creamy texture, and it's a clean white. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Let me wipe up the mess I made. Here. And then the other thing that you want to do after you mix it up is you want to make sure that you wipe off the edges of the bleed proof white, because if you then twist on the lid and there's a bunch of paint along the threads, then that's not going to open again for you after it dries. I mean, it might if you run it under hot water. Okay, so now we have fresh, clean, bleed-proof white. And then you're just gonna put the lid on it. And then somebody commented this, and I'm testing it now to see if it works. But basically, after you use your bleed-proof white, you store it upside down. And then that way, there's not a lot of air between the start of your bleed-proof white and your lid, so then it has a less chance of drying out. I'm just starting to put that in my practice, so I will let you know if that has worked for me. And basically, when it comes to like this bleed-proof white, you can see that it's not very crusty, it's just colorful. And so in that case, you could just scrape off and just get fresh bleed-proof white just like that. And you don't have to worry about mixing water back in with this, because I can tell that this is still pretty moist in here and it's not crusty or dry. And you get the crusty and the dryness, in my experience, I get it when I leave the lid off like overnight, which is something I do a lot, obviously. So if you remember to put your lid back on, then you really shouldn't have a problem with your bleed-proof white drying out. So here I just scraped off the bleed-proof white that was colorful, and I now have fresh.
Pristine.
Okay?
That one looks scary.
That one does look scary. Do you want me to try it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
All right.
Let me get my trash can. Okay, so yeah, this is really, so I'm just
powder.
So the majority of that was powder, but there's still some good stuff at the bottom. Okay.
That guy's real crispy.
He is. But there's still like a lot of, because when you use bleed proof white, you really don't use that much. So even if there's only like this much left from here down, that actually is still like a really good amount. And then I'm just gonna do a couple squirts. I'm just gonna use this.
What is that thing in your hand?
This is a palette knife.
Okay. That's not a traditional watercolor tool. It's like an oil tool.
Oil or acrylic, yeah.
Okay.
We used palette knives when we did the atmospheric paintings.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, they're not standard for watercolorists to have. So if you don't have a palette knife, don't go and buy one just for this. I would just use like a butter knife.
Use a very sensitive electronic. You know what I mean? That's a really good idea.
I actually think the first time I did this, I used the end of my paintbrush, like the handle.
Oh.
And then I just washed it off.
That's not a bad idea.
All right. There you go.
Boom.
It's moist, it's clean, and it's ready for use. And then you just put the lid on it. Also, if you're like me, you should probably clean your lids first. And then you're good to go.
They're great. And if you don't feel like doing any of that, just ignore it and they'll go away.
Yes.
And that's how it works.
Just throw it away and buy a new one.
Throw away, buy another one. Problem solved.
Okay. I hope that's helpful to you. I know that sometimes when you get a new material, it can be really like scary to use, but I just like look at me in my eyes when I tell you this. The only way to learn how to use something new is to just start using it. That's it. Don't try and look up all the things of like how to use it correctly, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, you can, but don't let that stop you. Like just start using it. And if it turns out where it's just like, oh, that doesn't work very well with that, well, now you know. Like, and that's how I have learned everything that I've learned is just like, oh, I'm going to try this. Let's incorporate this into my practice. How does it work? What does it not work? And I just kind of learn from experience. But I have noticed that when it comes to people who are newer with watercolor, they're really afraid to use a new material with watercolor. And the fear is that you'll ruin your painting. That can happen even with not a new material. You know what I'm saying? Like you really have to learn how to separate yourself from from you as an artist, you have to separate it from the work that you create, because then it doesn't matter if you ruin a painting. You'll make another one because that's what you do. You're an artist. So I just want to say, like, take something, try it, use it. Here are some tips of how I have learned to reconstitute my bleed proof white if it gets too dirty or dried out. And I hope that's helpful for you. And please don't be afraid to experiment and try your own things to see if they work. If you have great tips of how to keep your bleed proof white clean and fresh, please share them with us in the comments. Number one, don't dip dirty paintbrushes in there.
It's a very simple fix.
Listen,
There's a very simple solution.
I will also say that I have tried to like just scoop some out and put it. I bought these like tiny little ceramic dishes, so it would be like my bleed proof white dishes. And I just don't like it. I tried it. It's just not for me, okay? It doesn't feel good. So I don't do it anymore, and I just dip into my bleed proof white, and I've accepted that about myself.
And that's all that matters.
And you know what? That's half the battle, is just acceptance. So anyways, thank you guys so much for being here. We'll see you next time. Bye.